some of the Republican senators who voted against convicting Trump, somewhat oddly, I don't know, somewhat in a somewhat contradictory or awkward way, chose to pair their vote to acquit Trump with scathing statements about how convinced they were of Trump's guilt and how really anyone but them ought to really hold Trump accountable for these terrible things that he is guilty of. Senator Rob Portman of Ohio, for example, voting to acquit former President Trump and then releasing a statement saying, quote, what President Trump did that day was inexcusable. Quote, in his speech, he encouraged the mob. Quote, his slow response as the mob stormed the U.S. Capitol put at risk the safety of Vice President Pence, law enforcement officers, and others who work in the Capitol. Even after the attack, some of the language in Trump's tweets and in a video showed sympathy for the violent mob. This is a statement from Rob Portman, right? Sounding like it's a statement in support of his vote to convict. Right? He's saying Trump is definitely guilty. But this is actually the statement he put out to explain his vote to acquit him. Released the statement about how guilty Trump is in all these different ways. But then interestingly, he actually concludes that statement by saying that he thinks Trump should be criminally charged. Rob Portman this weekend, quote, the Constitution makes clear that former presidents are subject to the criminal justice system. That is where the issues raised by the president's inexcusable actions and words must be addressed. The criminal justice system must be employed to address Trump's inexcusable behavior and his culpability for the violent attack on the Capitol, says Senator Rob Portman. Raise your hand if you think that if the Justice Department brought federal criminal charges against President Trump for what he did on January 6th, Senator Rob Portman would remember that he said this and stand loud and proud in support of the arrest and imprisonment of President Trump. Raise your hand if he'd stick to this, if the Justice Department actually did bring those charges. But that is what Senator Portman argued while also voting to acquit President Trump. And of course, he wasn't the only one.
There's no question, none, that President Trump is practically and morally responsible for provoking the events of the day. No question about it. The people who stormed this building believed they were acting on the wishes and instructions of their president. Believe was a foreseeable consequence of the growing crescendo of false statements, conspiracy theories, and reckless hyperbole, which the defeated president kept shouting into the largest megaphone on planet Earth. The issue is not only the president's intemperate language on January 6th. It is not just his endorsement of remarks in which an associate urged, quote, trial by combat. It was also the entire manufactured atmosphere of looming catastrophe, the increasingly wild myths about a reverse landslide election that was somehow being stolen, some secret coup by our now president. Anyone who decries his awful behavior is accused of insulting millions of voters. That's an absurd deflection. 74 million Americans did not invade the Capitol. Hundreds of rioters did. 74 million Americans did not engineer the campaign of disinformation and rage that provoked it. One person did, just one. President Trump is still liable for everything he did while he was in office as an ordinary citizen. Unless the statute of limitations is run, still liable for everything he did while he's in office. Didn't get away with anything yet. We have a criminal justice system in this country. We have civil litigation. And former presidents are not immune from being accountable by either one.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.